Well, the Boxing Day fixture list has arrived in the EFL Championship, and we are back as we move past the halfway point to match day 24. Today, we're going to run through our predictions for all 12 games, and I'll encourage you to do the same as always. Get your predictions in the comments below, and if you beat or match my score, you will get a shout out in the next recap at the start of the next episode, which will be released on Wednesday afternoon ahead of Friday's fixtures in a championship. But first of all, a massive thank you for coming along and your support so far this season. It is the final episode before Christmas from the Championship predictions, so I hope you have a good Christmas day. Enjoy the festivities, have a good time, and enjoy the football on Boxing Day, most importantly. Before we go and move on to match day 24 though, let's have a quick recap of what happened at the weekend. I'm recording this on Saturday night, so my disappointment is fresh from picking up just 7 points. It was all looking decent after Friday night, where I got a perfect score for Swansea's win against Preston. Former Luton man Alan Sheehan doing the job again. But 4 points on Saturday were all that followed, with wins for Leeds United, Leicester, Norwich and Coventry away in Mick Beale's first game for Sunderland. But there were a few of you in the comments who beat or matched my score, albeit it was a fairly low scoring week overall. Chris, you matched my score with 7 and 1 perfect score, so well done to you. Steve got 8, all for correct outcomes. Mitchell 8 with 2 perfect scores. 3 of you tied on 10. Simon, 2 perfect scores for you. Aksha and Mello, 3 perfect scores to get to double figures with 8 predictions completely wrong. A very incredible effort. Well done to you all. But for the second match day run-in, it's a big well done to RZL. 11 points with 3 perfect scores. And for the second in a row, you are the match day winner for match day 23 in a championship. Now, because of the hectic fixture schedule over Christmas and the fact I do want to enjoy a bit of Christmas Day off, I am recording this on a Saturday night. I've seen key incidents, but I've not seen as many of the highlights and stats as I would normally. So it's going to be a bit more quick fire than normal. As we move on to Boxing Day, the first fixture live on TV is the 12:30 kickoff between Preston North End and Leeds United. Leeds with a brilliant win against Ipswich, 4-0. And they were everything that we worried about in recent weeks. They were ruthless, they scored every shot on target they had, and they restricted Ipswich to next to nothing, which was a really impressive effort. They played Ipswich off the park to narrow the gap to 7, and in turn did Southampton a favour too. I still stick with my pre-season prediction that they're in that top 2, but they go away to Preston, one of the out-of-form teams in the division, and after a defeat at Swansea on Friday night, they're in big trouble again. They're into the bottom half after that brilliant start. They've picked up 10 points in their last 15 games. It's not looking good for Preston at the minute. It was a pretty even game against Swansea, albeit they gave up the ball. In the end, they just don't relieve enough pressure, and late on, that cost them against Swansea City. So for this one, I think most of you and I will be going for a Leeds United win. How many by, I'm not too sure, because Leeds haven't scored plenty on the road at times. And Preston, we know are going to play for a draw. So I'm going to go for Preston to fail to score. But Leeds, this time, half the score. They're going to win 2-0 at Preston North End. Let's move on to the second game, the other early kickoff on Boxing Day. This one, for policing reasons, it is Millwall versus Queen's Park Rangers. And 2 teams that are just starting to dip in form again. QPR had 3 wins in a row, now 3 without a win. The last 2 sucker punches against teams further down the division, but a fairly valiant effort against Southampton at the weekend. For Millwall, a 0-0 draw as they face Steven Schumacher's first game in charge of Stoke. And after the Huddersfield result, and after the fact they've had a frustrating few weeks, it's still no win since Joe Edwards' first game. Still not a lot of inspiration in front of goal, if we're being honest. Just 1 shot on target managed in the game. And Stoke were the better side, if we're being honest. So really worrying signs for Millwall, who are looking like one of those sides that might get dragged into the battle, and you could well say they already are, in fairness. So I look ahead to this one. I think it's going to be a tight game. Both sides will probably be fearful of losing because QPR have got to stop the mini-rot as well. At the moment, they're probably edging it of the 2 sides with performances, but they've got a mistake in them at the back. So I'm sitting on the fence with a Championship's favourite scoreline. I'm going for 1 goal apiece. Let's move on to the 8:03 p.m. kickoffs, and we start with Cardiff City versus managerless Plymouth. At the time of recording, Plymouth fought back to get a 3-3 draw against Birmingham. They were helped by a red card, but let's be honest with it. We know Birmingham are pretty open defensively. They did create chances, Plymouth, but they're so susceptible at the back, and Birmingham had enough chances to win that game. Enough clear chances, I should say. Plymouth, we know, are very competitive at home. On the road, it's been a bit different this year. Yet to pick up that crucial win, and Cardiff still having a decent year. A big turnaround late on against Sheffield Wednesday. From one down, they came back and fought to the end. And after a little poor run, they're back in that mix for the playoffs again. Just 3 points away. They'll be thrilled with where they are at this stage of the season. It's going to be a tight game, this, for me, but given Plymouth's away record and their poor form defensively, add to that the fact they've lost Schumacher now as well, I'm going to go for them just to be pipped in this one. I'm not sure who's going to come in as their next man. There's a couple of names being touted, but for this occasion, I'm going for Cardiff to win it, and I'm going by 2-1. Next up is Coventry City versus Sheffield Wednesday. Coventry pretty much benefited from poor managerial decisions at Sunderland. The decision to get rid of Mowbray, then to bring in Mick Beale as the replacement. Well, Coventry were delighted with it as they ran away 3-0 winners away at the Stadium of Light. And Sheffield Wednesday, from being ahead against Cardiff, it's a really frustrating result. It looked like they just turned the corner, they just found a way, and they actually played pretty well in that game. But unfortunately, late on, it was defeat. I'm not going to judge too much on them because they're back in the mix, which is all you could have asked for as a Wednesday fan. Danny Roll's picking up points, he's playing better football with them, and he's almost at that January window now. So, positive signs for Sheffield Wednesday, but I think this one will be a bit tough. Coventry are starting to find that form as they did at this time last season. I'm going to go for them to pip this one. I think it'll be a pretty ugly game if I'm being honest with you, but I'm going to go for Coventry to win it, and I'm going to go by 1-0. Let's move on to a big game between Huddersfield Town and Blackburn. Huddersfield definitely in trouble. They were defeated at Norwich City and now just 2 points clear of that relegation zone. And Blackburn very much doing what they were last season. Just drawn one of their 23 games. They seem to only ever win or lose their matches. And in this one, a difficult one against Watford. Again, ahead early, but somehow lost the match. And it's the same old story with them. They're so susceptible defensively. They're so lacking in clinical edge when it comes to taking chances. And it is all starting to fall away. We've had those little rumours about Thomason's job on and off all season. And I know they've lost their key striker and their key goalkeeper from last year, added to a few others as well. But it's not looking good for them at the moment. And this game, against an out-of-form team that's struggling, has got to be one where they pick up a result. I think they will. I'm not sure they win the game. Huddersfield, they've been a mix of whimpering defeats and battling displays. And this time I'm going to go for the latter. And I'm going to go for a bit of a thriller. A 2-2 draw against two slightly porous defences. And as we move on from two sides that conceded a combined 78 goals last year, we move on to two that conceded 3 this weekend. It was not a happy start for Mick Beale's Sunderland, who now have to bounce back away at Hull City. They had a pretty frustrating time of it themselves against Bristol City, having been 2-1 up with 15 minutes to go to throw away the game late on. Very un-Hull-like under Liam Rosenior. It was a pretty even game. There weren't great chances all the time, but because of the way other results have worked out, Hull are still in that playoff place at the minute, and they will be licking their lips having watched the Sunderland game on Saturday. Mick Beale's start did not go to plan. Obviously, a lot of fans have made their voices known when he was appointed, and I'm not going to go over what we said in the manager special again, which is up in the eye above, but it's a very strange decision. A manager who's been brilliant with young players in the Championship, got a proven track record in Tony Mowbray, and who overachieved last season, and probably so far this as well. To then replace him with someone who's not got that proven record, who's been sacked from a job 2 months ago playing passive football, is bizarre. It really is. And his interview after the first game, I've got to be honest, I was a little bit concerned about it. I'm not sure it's the right fit now, and I of course wasn't sure it was the right fit then. So for this game, I'm going to go for Hull to bounce back. I just think that it's going to be a tricky few weeks for Sunderland. That Newcastle Cup tie coming up is big for them. But for now, I'm going for Hull to win, the safe prediction, by 3-1, given their recent improved home form. Next up is a big game in Yorkshire as Rotherham United, managed by Liam Richardson, host Middlesbrough. Borough, really good week for them so far. The 3-0 win at Port Vale, sending them to the Cup semi-final, and wins away at Swansea and at home to West Brom in the league. For Rotherham, Look, they were never going to get a result at Leicester, but they kept the score down, they were competitive, and they did the same at Plymouth last time. But you can't change the fact that it's been a rotten few weeks for them. They need to pick up a win, just 2 all season and none in their last 7 matches. And you go to a Middlesbrough side that are finding form again, that are picking up towards the playoffs, just 3 points away. A side that don't often draw as well this season. And while Rotherham have put in some battle in home performances, and Liam Richardson, I do feel is the right man if given time and a little bit of support in January. I worry for this game. I fancied Borough to nick it, but I do love a Championship's favourite scoreline. It's Boxing Day. There's quite often goals. There's quite often glamour. I'm going to save the high-scoring games for other ones and surprise everyone by going for a Championship's favourite scoreline here. 1-1, but don't be surprised if Borough nick it. Next, we move on to Southampton, who host Swansea City. Southampton absolutely flying as the unbeaten run continues. Yes, they've had some frustrating 1-1 draws on the road recently, but at home, they have been fantastic. 7-0 is the aggregate score in their last 3 home games. They beat Blackburn last time out 4-0. They were really good away at QPR last weekend as well, and that picked them up a big 3 points to move them within 7 of the automatic promotion places. And I've got to give credit to Russell Martin. I criticised him earlier in the year, and he's slowly learning his lesson, so fair play. Another fair play, though, goes to Alan Sheehan, who's done a really good job in interim charge of Swansea. They beat Preston on Friday night. They battled till the end, and they got that 95th minute winner after dominating possession and having a couple of good chances. I know what that character of Alan Sheehan is all about, having played and skippered Luton to League One promotion, but he's really done a good job so far there. This one, I think, though, will be a game too far. They're going to have to sit in and play a slightly different way, or they will get carved open. I was tempted to go for a bigger score here, but I feel that Swansea will adapt and play a bit more defensively. So as much as I'm going to go for a Southampton win and to continue that ridiculous unbeaten run, I'm going to go for it by a narrow scoreline of 2-1 at St Mary's. Into the final third then, we go to Vicarage Road for Watford versus Bristol City. Watford, a really good turnaround against Blackburn again. And I've mentioned this quite a few times in recent weeks, and for me it's where Valérien Ismaël deserves the most credit. Take away any Luton fan bias here. These are the games that last season, under Wilder, under Bilic, in that middle to late period of the season, when Watford went behind, they just didn't win games. They folded, they gave away poor goals, they lost by 2 or 3, they had a soft underbelly. And this season, they fight back from winning positions. They were brilliant to get the 5-1 at Preston. They took their chances, they were ruthless. This was a very different type of game, and the character shown is something we've not seen from a Watford side for a couple of years, so big credit there. They're up to 7th, they're doing really well, and who knows, the way they're going, they might sneak in the playoffs, and we might even end up with an M1 Premier League derby next year. We can only wait and see, can't we? But I've got to say, I was a fan of Valérien Ismaël's at Barnsley, and he's starting to show those signs now for Watford as well. But a very big win and big back-to-back wins for Bristol City under Liam Manning. It had been a tough start to his time in charge, particularly away from home. But 2 big wins against Sunderland and Hull, 2 sides competing for those playoff places. And Bristol City moved back into the top half, back to where they were when Pearson left, 4 points away from the playoffs. And if they can back those performances up away from home, it might be a slightly different game. But I've seen generally with Bristol City so far that they've played a bit more cautiously on the road, look to keep a structure and not to get beat more than going all out to win. But that's no shame at the moment while Manning waits for January and he's settling in and doing okay at the minute. For this game though, I just feel Watford will have enough, and I know they've been involved in a few thrillers and high-scoring games in their last 6, but I just feel this one's going to be a bit different. So on a hunch and not based on the score predictions recently at all, I'm going to go for Watford to win it and win it ugly by 1-0. Let's move on to the final 3 p.m. kickoff, which is West Bromwich Albion versus Norwich City. Norwich, very comfortable win against Huddersfield in the end, a 2-0 victory at home for them. West Brom frustrated away at Middlesbrough in what was always going to be a pretty tricky game, you've got to be honest. Borough had a number of clear-cut chances, and on another day, they might have won it by 2 or 3, so perhaps West Brom consider themselves fortunate. They were a threat at times in wide areas, won a lot of set pieces, but I think Borough deserved to win the game based on the best chances of it. For Norwich City, a really decent win again. They're starting to find form. They dominated the game. Again, possibly could have won by more than 2 in the end, but they're up to 8th. And I did say that David Wagner would get this side in the top 6 this year. I was impressed with what they've done. And I know they had a tricky spell after the Sargent injury and losing a couple of big defenders at the end of the summer window, but they've bounced back well. And fair play to the board for sticking as well, because it would have been easy when that pressure was on, say goodbye to him. But he's come back well. They're fighting back hard. And they're doing a pretty good job at the minute. So credit to Norwich City. For this game, it's going to be pretty tough, isn't it? West Brom at home are generally very solid. I know they had the tough game against Leicester and they were frustrated by that cross-come shot against Stoke, but they were brilliant against Ipswich. They've been good at home generally this year, and even the Leicester game, they didn't deserve to lose. So, again, I'm going to go quite narrow. Was going to go for the classic 2-0, but I feel I always do that for West Brom. Norwich have started scoring goals again, and against any team that comes out and plays against them, they normally find a little bit of a threat. So, Norwich to get a consolation, West Brom to nick it by 2-1. On to the 2 late TV games, and we start with Birmingham City versus Stoke City. Oh, Wayne Rooney just cannot get those consistent wins, can he? A 3-3 draw away at Plymouth Argyle. A red card that was pretty costly in the end, and to be fair, they gave up the ball. They had great chances on the counter-attack, but we mentioned it after the Leicester game. I mention it again now. They are so naive and poor defensively. And it's something that's got to be addressed. You can't just keep making the mistake and say, well, we're playing entertaining football. There's got to be rewards at the end of it. But definitely better signs going forward the last 3 or 4 games for Rooney's Birmingham. So that's a positive to take. And this game is a real opportunity because Stoke have been out of form, which didn't really change with Millwall in town, an out of form side. Yes, Stoke dominated the game in Schumacher's first one in charge. You can see our manager special on that in the eye above. But while they had loads of shots and lots of efforts from distance, Millwall blocking shots galore during the game, they didn't really create a number of brilliant openings. It was more huffing and puffing than having absolute blinding chances to win the game. So that's going to be the thing to work on, but more attacking intent and more positive signs in that opener from Schumacher. Certainly not the finished article yet though. And this is going to be a tough game, an important game between 2 out of form sides. So for this one, I feel Birmingham are in the better form going forward. Stoke are probably still the better of the 2 defensively. So I'm going to go... what score do I go? I'm certain on a draw. I was going to go Championship's favourite scoreline again. It's Boxing Day. There's goals. Let's have a thriller. 2-2 for the second time in this prediction show. Birmingham 2, Stoke City 2. And the final game, looking to bounce back at Ipswich Town at home to Leicester. Second v first, and well... Ipswich didn't fare too well in second v third, did they? Beaten 4-0 at Leeds United with no shot on target. Leeds the dominant force for the most part of the game. A really good performance from them, but Ipswich, a couple of poor defensive displays in a row there. They dominated the end of the East Anglian derby, but again gave up some poor chances at the back, and that maybe is the one thing McKenna will look to improve in January. But having said that, Leicester defensively have not been great in recent weeks. Yes, a clean sheet against Rotherham in what was the ultimate home banker of the weekend. Shame they couldn't get a 4th to get me that perfect score and win me the match day, but they did show signs of vulnerability against both Birmingham and Millwall on the counter-attack. And while they are brilliant going forward and they've just got so much attacking talent in the team, there is definitely an opportunity to get at them here. On paper, this should be a thriller because Ipswich at home are generally entertaining. They are a little bit leaky at the back. They've scored the most goals at home. And Leicester, they're just doing really well. They're going to win the league, aren't they? They've scored goals galore in their last 5. They're going to get a couple more here. I think this might be a little sticky run for Ipswich. I don't think they're going to get battered. I'm going to go for Leicester to win the final game of the day by 2-1 at Portman Road. So with that done, let's have a quick recap of what I've gone for in matchday 24. The Boxing Day edition, I've gone for all bar 3 teams to score, but only one to score 3. That Hull City against Mick Beale's Sunderland. Preston, Sheffield Wednesday and Bristol City, the 3 are predicted to draw a blank. And hopefully, as always, we'll get the festive feast of goals from the Championship season. I've gone for Leeds and Southampton to close the gap on the top 2, but do you agree or disagree with me? Let me know in the comments below. Give us your predictions for matchday 24, and if you beat or match my overall score, you'll get a shout out in the recap at the start of Wednesday's episode when we look ahead to the full fixture list on Friday. If you did enjoy this one and you are enjoying the championship season, please do put a thumbs up on the video. We've got loads to come over the festive period. We did post the schedule on the community page. If you want to stay up to date with it all, subscribe, turn that little notification bell on. You'll get alerts every time something new releases. We're going to be back tomorrow afternoon following Wolves-Chelsea with our Premier League preview for Boxing Day, a look ahead to Luton, Sheffield United and all the predictions there. We've also got 2 more championship predictions to come before the end of the calendar year and another one from the Premier League next week as well. And we're also waiting on a couple of championship manager specials. There's going to be a busy month for Craig here on the channel as well. But thank you very much for your incredible support throughout 2023. We really do appreciate it here on the podcast. If you missed anything else, you can find the links in the eye above. But for now, a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. We'll see you again here on the 27th of December. But for now, enjoy your festivities and a full fixture list from the Championship on Boxing Day.